bring this up a little bit.
How you feeling, babe?
Good. I feel like rolling beautiful bean footage.
I love you.
Okay.
Not even going to say thank you.
We ready to do this?
I said I love you.
Oh, that's
you said
nice.
Nothing.
Nice. That's nice.
Okay. Let's do this.
How are you feeling?
Kind of tired. I'm going to drink coffee as we podcast.
Okay. Anything you want to say to everybody out in YouTube land?
Sup.
That reminds me of that episode of Friends.
Sup,
Joey.
y'all.
Sup with the whack PlayStation, sup.
What does that even mean? Means nothing.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Ready to get down to business?
Yeah.
Should we gather everybody around?
Let's do it. I feel like you're going to drop your phone in the
Do you
middle
think
of
it's
this
time for our family meeting?
It is time.
All right. Let's go.
It's time.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you're throwing me off course. Gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The family meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. Where are the Osterkamps? I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lysandra.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 88 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to continue our discussion on family unity. Today's episode has been adapted from a 5-week series Thomas and I have been presenting at our church called This Is Us. We're taking some time to learn from a family in the Bible. We're looking at the family of Isaac and Rebekah and their sons Jacob and Esau. Today, we're focusing on parental unity. And we're going to pick up the story in Genesis 27.
Now, everything that we've talked about in this family up to this point is kind of leading up to today's discussion, and we'll finish it off next week and kind of see some of the fallout here. But you think about the favoritism, the competition between the two boys that's kind of pitted against each other, and then it's really taken to the next level here in this episode. And we're talking about these parents here and what's taking place. And all parents disagree. And, we have disagreements. Sometimes disagreements and discussions can turn into arguments. And I'm kind of curious, thinking about childhood and my parents and your parents. Let's dish some dirt on your parents.
Oh, poor mom and dad.
I need some ammo. What's something that your parents argued about?
So I grew up in a very peaceful home, very loving for most of the time. Really good situation.
When wasn't it loving?
Sometimes my dad and my brother went at it.
Oh, gotcha.
Especially in his teen years, older teen years, they would go head to head. But other than that, it was very peaceful and we had a lot of really good times, including my dad and my brother had a lot of really good times. Great family vacations, all that kind of stuff. But there was one thing my parents argued about, and it was in my memory as a child, which is often skewed.
It is.
I felt like it was like clockwork. Every month there was going to be a fight, and it was on Monday nights. My parents, once a month on a Monday night, would come together and talk finances and talk money. And I do remember, because their bedroom was in the basement of our home. We had a tiny house, and before tiny houses were cool, we had a tiny house.
Yeah.
And my parents would only argue in the basement, which was their bedroom. And so it wasn't like they were arguing in front of us and, screaming and throwing things or anything like that. They were trying to keep it quiet. But me, my brother, and my sister would push our ears up against the door of the basement, and we would listen to their fight.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah. What is that about kids? Kids want to hear. They just want to hear when somebody's arguing, or they want to be in the know.
Yeah, I feel like our kids right now have their ears. Our kids are upstairs right now while we're recording this. And so I imagine they have their ears trying to figure out what it is we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's possible.
What stories we're going to reveal.
Yeah.
And finances cause arguments in a lot of homes.
Right.
Specifically when you don't have enough of it. It's like, It's the stress of it all and everything else.
You and I only really have understanding of not having enough money to like pay bills and everything. But I am pretty sure, and maybe some of our more comfortable listeners can answer this for us. I think even when you have a lot of money, there's something to fight about money.
I'm sure that there is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most definitely.
How to spend it, what to do with it, whatnot. Okay. Yeah.
Your situation is so weird to me because conflict was kind of a regular event in our house. And so it could be about finances. They had arguments about finances. TV shows, holidays, church, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. The house itself.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the house itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's always something that we just can disagree about. There's something to argue over.
I disagree. I think we agree on everything.
No, you're wrong. There's something to disagree about.
No, I'm right. We agree on everything.
No.
See what we did there?
Yeah. Man, we're so good. We've been learning, though, from this family's poor example. We've been learning what not to do. And we are going to find some things not to do in this family here. And sometimes learning what not to do can actually be more helpful than learning what to do. I can think of specific times in my life where I've learned a lot from the bad examples of others. I remember thinking many times in my life, well, I'm never going to do that. I thought that about my older siblings when they would get into trouble. I thought that about some people in ministry that I was working with. A bad example can be a great teacher. Not everyone in the Bible had great character and always did what is right.
Most of them didn't.
Exactly. But we can learn from everyone in the Bible nonetheless. Also, one thing that we're really learning here is that God can use us even if we fail.
Yeah.
So let that be an encouragement to you. It's not too late for you, even if you've made mistakes. I should say, even though you've made mistakes.
Yeah, because we all make mistakes.
Because you have. Yeah.
But in this passage, we see severe disunity between parents. You know, what started off as connecting with one child better than another, which we talked about, that's not a bad thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with connecting with one child better than another. But when you take it to the next level and you're showing favoritism and all this stuff. So that led to competition and favoritism. And now we see full out opposition and disunity in the family. And if we as parents allow our connection with one child over another to continue unchecked, this is where it leads. You just look at the lives of Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Esau, and you can see where it leads. It's a family which is completely divided. One parent standing with one child against the other parent and the other child.
To get a full understanding of what's happening in the passage of scripture that we're going to look at today, I want to encourage you really, go home, or maybe you are home. Read the chapter of Genesis 27 on your own. Read the whole story, get the context. We're not going to take time to go through every verse to get a full understanding of this story, but what we're going to do is we are going to give you a quick background of what's happening leading up to the passage that we're going to look at verse by verse, okay? So what's happening here is Isaac is getting very old. He's actually pretty much blind.
Yeah.
And he understands he's near the end of his life. So he calls in Esau, his firstborn, his favorite. And he tells him he wants to give him the blessing. It's time. But first go out and hunt game, okay? So he wants him to go out and get him a venison or some sort of game. Bring it back, prepare it the way I like it, and bring it to me, and then I'm going to bless you. So Esau does exactly what his father says. He leaves and he heads out on the hunt.
Now, you mentioned the blessing.
Right.
And we've already talked about the birthright here. And there may be some people that don't understand the difference between the two. We talked about the birthright being mostly physical. So you got a double portion of the inheritance, which in this family's case was a huge deal. They were a wealthy family. It had a lot of stuff, a lot of cattle, all that sorts of things. So to get double, that was a big deal. You basically have twice as much stuff as the others. There was a small spiritual aspect in the fact that you would be the family priest. Okay, but think of the birthright as mostly physical, and then the blessing was spiritual. So he pronounced a blessing on your family, your grandkids, your descendants, all that kind of stuff. So it's basically physical versus spiritual. Jacob had already stolen and not stolen, but basically
Tricked.
He deceived and swindled his brother out of the physical inheritance. And now we're going to be talking about what he does to get the spiritual blessing.
Right. So as Isaac is speaking to Esau and giving him instructions to receive the blessing, here Rebekah is listening in. The wife, the mother, she's listening in.
Kind of like you and your brother and sister.
A lot like
when you're like, have your ear up to the door.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I picture.
I know, right? And so when she heard the instructions given to Esau, she quickly went and she got her favorite son, Jacob. And she shared with her favorite son a plan in which they would deceive Isaac, her husband, Jacob's father. And with the deception, she would get the blessing for her favorite son. These are two parents who are completely disunified and actually working against one another.
And all parents have disagreements, right? We're human.
Yes, it's true.
We have different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives, different opinions, and in some cases, even different beliefs. So just because you're married to someone doesn't mean you see eye to eye on everything. Lysandra and I, we have similar backgrounds growing up, but we are opposites in almost every way.
Yes.
Now, on some major things like beliefs, we are the same, but even in certain aspects of that, we don't necessarily see eye to eye on some things. So you have differences, and these differences will eventually create disagreements. And you will disagree about how to do a lot of things, including raising your children. And in this portion of Scripture, we see what not to do in a disagreement.
Right, because this husband and wife, they disagreed on who they felt like should get the blessing. And they did not handle it well. So we're going to look at a few things to stay away from in a disagreement with your spouse. Number one, don't take sides. So obviously, when you're coming into an argument, you're on one side and your spouse is on the other. I understand that. What I mean by don't take sides is do not side with one child over another.
I would add do not side with your child over your spouse either.
Yeah, that's definitely what's happening here. We need to understand that it's not about winning. It's about reconciliation. It's about coming to an agreement and doing what's best for the team, for the family. But here what we see is we see Isaac siding with Esau, Rebekah siding with Jacob, and it's like a battle there. I just kind of picture them like head to head in battle stance, and they are against one another. They are taking sides. They're not thinking about the greater good or the team as a whole. They've taken sides. All right, so what else can we stay away from in a disagreement? Number two, do not keep secrets from the other parent. And that's what we see here. We see Rebekah kind of sneaking around. She's got this secret plan with Jacob. And don't tell your father. Here's the plan. And I hope that this is not something that you do in your family where it's, don't tell dad, but we're going to go here, even though we said we were going to go grocery shopping, Now, we have done that. That's why I use that as an example.
Oh, boy.
Because me and the girls have done that. But it was always like a little bit of a joke, like where...
like we're
we'd
going
be like,
to Starbucks.
yeah, we're going to go to Starbucks. Don't tell dad. And then we get a picture with our Starbucks and send it to him and like, hope you're enjoying working,
Yeah.
And
because that's something
I
don't care about if you go to Starbucks.
Yeah. But that's the example that I chose because we've actually done that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you know what I'm talking about. Real secrets from the other parent. Even if they are kind of nonsense, it is very unwise. Do not keep secrets from the other parents. Number 3. Don't make plans to thwart the plan or goal of the other parent. So here, Rebekah is actively working to ruin her husband's plan. And this is wrong.
Yeah.
Your spouse has goals, has plans, has achievements, has ambitions that they want to see happen. And we, as the spouse, should be the wind beneath their wings, so to speak, okay? We should be the ones uplifting them and helping them to achieve their goals and their dreams, rather than actively trying to ruin their goals, plans, and dreams. Lastly, number 4, don't make your children disobey their other parent. And this is so sad because we see that Rebecca essentially convinces, prods Jacob into disobeying Isaac.
Yeah.
And I know that this can be tempting because maybe, actually I felt tempted. I don't even know if tempted is the right word. It crossed my mind. I'll say that. When you had taken one of our daughter's phone away for what I felt like was too long.
Yeah.
But I went along with it because it wasn't like, there's no abuse happening here. Everybody's okay. She's fine. This is good for her. All of these things. I just didn't really agree with it. I would have made it less time. And it's inconvenient for me that she doesn't have her phone.
Well, it's my phone, but yeah.
Yeah. That she doesn't have the phone we pay for. But you know what? I cannot just give her her phone back and be like, listen, just take your phone. I'll handle daddy. That's maybe more of a current example of this, making the child disobey their parent. But even, one spouse says, do the dishes, and the other spouse is like, no, don't worry about that. Just come sit with me. We're going to go do this fun thing, whatever. Do not make your children disobey their other parent, even if you do not agree on what is happening.
Well, and there's been times where I had to take back something I said the kids could do or allow, because later on I found out you had said the exact opposite. And so they might have asked you for something and you said yes or no, usually no, let's be honest.
Yep.
And then they would come to me later on and ask, and I would say yes. And but I didn't have all the information.
Yeah.
And there's been times where you were close enough to say, no, I already said, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
If Mommy had already said, we're not going against Mommy,
Yeah. Or sometimes they will text both of us at the same time. Thomas and I are in different locations. The kids are at home. And he might come back with a yes where I came back with a no. And depending on how that all happens, sometimes it's not necessarily, they're not even trying to like go around me to get to get the
Yeah,
yes.
it's just one of us didn't answer immediately, so they tried the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But this kind of transitioned us into the other side of the coin. So we've looked at what not to do. Let's look at what we should do when we come to a disagreement with our spouse. And the first one is present a unified front. So Lysandra and I are not on opposite sides. We're not in competition with one another. We're on a team. Mm-hmm. And so we together, we put on a unified front. We're on the same side. And so the goal is not to win. Me personally, the goal is not for Lysandra to win. The goal is for us as a couple and as a family to win. Mm-hmm. So we want to come to a unified decision together. So we don't put off an air in front of our kids that we're in opposition to each other. And I like what your parents did when they were discussing things, is they would go into private as best as they could. Mm-hmm. And we understand how it is when you live with people. Your kids are going to overhear things you don't want them to hear. They're going to overhear it. Why? Because we all live in a confined space. But as best as you can, you go off into, this leads us to the second thing, discuss the disagreement in private. Like, you don't need to have an argument in front of your kids. Now, there's times where you have to discuss things in front of your kids. If you brought this up Sunday during the message, Lysandra. Yeah. Like, if you're in the car, and we've had times where we're traveling, because we went on a road trip for like 3 weeks with friends of ours, so we're in the van a lot.
Yeah.
And so there's times where we have to have discussions in front of our kids. And how we handle that discussion is important. As best as we can, we don't argue in front of the kids. We go to a private place and we take care of things. Number 3 is discuss the disagreement calmly and lovingly, because guess what? You're rarely alone in a family of 6. Okay? So my kids are going to hear me. They're going to hear how I talk to my wife. Mm-hmm. They're going to hear how she talks to me. Even if they don't know what we're talking about, if they hear me shouting, if they hear anger in my voice, like they understand what that means. Mm-hmm. If you're in the car and they're sitting right there, it's important. It shouldn't matter if anybody's around. You should still discuss it calmly and lovingly. Like that's the proper way to disagree with one another. And then fourthly is be honest with your spouse about your thoughts and feelings. Don't withhold information. Like that's not a loving thing to do. Once again, we're not trying to win an argument. We're trying to resolve a situation or a conflict. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, we need all the information that's involved. So Lysandra needs to hear my thoughts and feelings on the situation. I need to hear hers, see her side of the story and the situation so that we can together come to a resolution. And those are the things that we ought to be doing when there's conflict.
You know, that last point had me thinking about Isaac and Rebecca in this situation. And it just makes me wonder what would have happened if Rebecca would have come into the tent and said, Isaac, I really respect you and I appreciate your opinion on this, but I really think that Jacob should receive the bigger blessing. And, here's why. Makes you wonder, like, what would that have looked like if they had a mature adult discussion about it?
And maybe she tried. We don't really know.
It doesn't appear that way though. Based on the character that we read, I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
But this whole being honest about thoughts and feelings in a disagreement was something that I personally had to work on at the beginning of our marriage because I believed I was doing the right thing and being the peacemaker. When I would say, oh, yeah, it's fine. Okay, it's fine. I was
whatever
just trying to say yes, just trying to keep peace, let him get his way so that there would be peace. And what I realized is that was a form of lying. And I had to start speaking the truth in love when we disagreed about things. And I had to just say respectfully, like, I love you and I really respect you, but this is why I just don't think that that's the right decision, or this is why I think we should do this instead. And we had to have conversations like that frequently because parents disagree.
Well, and part of the situation there was based upon my experience and my own competitive nature. I was a win at all costs. That's the mentality that I had.
Yeah, and that's what you saw in your house.
So you take your conflict aversion and peace-loving nature, combine that with somebody who's a win at all cost, and you're gonna have a lot of issues unless both of you can recognize what's taking place, and each of you on your own take steps to right the situation.
Yeah, you have to understand your weaknesses, and it's funny because when you describe it that way, it kind of sounds like we were a match made in heaven. You win all the time, I lose all the time, and everybody's still happy.
No, yeah, but that's not happiness.
It does not work that way. Yeah,
you weren't happy. No.
And were you happy?
I mean, I'm
you were like, I was winning.
I'm happy with you all the time. It was less work because I didn't really have to talk about my feelings and everything, but we weren't as close as we are now because we've learned and have grown from each other and towards each other.
I agree with that. So you don't look back in the rearview mirror like, man, I miss those days when she was just a yes woman.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, these parents in Genesis 27 don't do any of these good things when they disagree. They do all of the don'ts. And they disagree about who should get the blessing. So Rebecca convinces Jacob to go along with her scheme. So let's pick up in Genesis 27:19.
Well, before we jump in there, you'd mentioned Rebecca convinces Jacob to go along with her scheme. You want to just kind of fill people in who are less familiar with what the scheme actually was. What is her plan?
Yeah, so her plan is that Jacob is going to go into his mostly blind father, saying he is Esau, and Isaac will give Jacob the blessing, even though it's not Esau. He's going to lie. And in order to pull this, well, first of all, Jacob says, no, this is not going to work. He's going to know it's me, Mom, and then it's going to be worse than ever. Well, Rebecca foresaw that, and so she says, to take this skin of a goat and put it on your arms and on your neck where your father will surely touch you. And you're going to feel hairy like your brother. And so Jacob even says, like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't want to do it. But Rebecca pushes even harder. Oh man, do I identify with the pushy mom? I'm like, it's like looking in the mirror, okay?
Yeah.
I'm always pushing my kids. I mean, yeah, we're kind of like, as parents, supposed to push them to be better and everything. And I get that, like, push them to do more, work harder, get better grades, all that stuff. But man, I'm like pushy in every sense of the word.
It totally reminds me of Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness when
Okay.
Wanda was like, I'm not a monster, I'm their mother.
So since we saw that movie, I have been quoting that all the time. And one time,
Cracking me up.
Violet switched it and she goes, "You're not our mother, you're a monster." And I was laughing so hard. She said it in jest. Don't worry, people. Anyway, okay, so that's the background. Let's go to 19. Jacob said to his father, he comes in, "I'm Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." Now the game that he had prepared it with his mother, Rebecca, who they went and killed a goat, and they prepared game that way. So Jacob goes into Isaac, pretending to be his brother Esau, intentionally deceiving him. He flat out lies to his father for the sole purpose of stealing from his brother. And it's all done at the suggestion of his mother. Family dysfunction at its finest, huh?
Oh, yeah. And you can just see the extent that she goes. Like, she knew exactly what spices and everything else and how to prepare this meal so that her husband wouldn't know that it wasn't the right meal. And so he comes in, he says, "Hey, I'm back, sit up and eat so you can give me the blessing." And verse 20, but Isaac said to his son, and you can sense the hesitation in his voice. It says, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" So he has some, like, something's a little off here. Like,
Suspicion.
This is not...
It's sus.
Yeah, it's sus. We're like the cool kids.
We are so cool.
But he understands, like, something's off. He knows about how long it takes for his son to go out wherever his spot is and find and kill the game and to dress it and do all the things and then prepare it and cook it. Like, there's a certain amount of time that it normally takes. And in this situation, it happens very quickly. And you notice Jacob's response where he says, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." And so here, things get even worse. Like, Jacob is piling sin upon sin, lie upon lie, deceit upon deceit. And Isaac might be old and blind, but he's still smart, and he is sus. Like, he's suspicious. It appears he does not trust his younger son, and rightfully so.
Right.
And remember, when we lie and deceive, that is our character. That we break trust, and trust is lost in a moment and is earned back over a lifetime. And after Jacob lies to his father, Isaac, he then uses God in his deception. And how often do we do this?
Yeah.
Like, rather than just telling somebody no when they ask us something, here's what we do. Let me pray about that. Like, you're not going to pray about it. I'm not going to pray about it. I've said that before. Like, I'm the pastor and I want to seem spiritual. Yeah, let me pray about that. I'm not praying about that. Like, I just lied. I just used God to deceive that person and make that person feel better about me saying no to them. Mm-hmm. And so in a lot of situations, a lot of times decisions we make are ours, and then we want to throw God out there and kind of put him in the mix. Mm-hmm. Whether we're talking about a move or a job change or moving church, like changing churches. We see this sometimes leading a church. Mm-hmm. God's just kind of moving us to this church. Well, he may be, but a lot of times we're just, our needs aren't quote unquote being met, our preferences or whatever else. Let's not use God. Let's just say what we need to say.
Absolutely.
I mean, we leave God out of a lot of things. Let's not throw his name into things he's not in.
Yeah,
so.
for real. Okay, so let's look at verse 21. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." My goodness, it's no surprise that Isaac isn't buying Jacob's act. I mean, he tells Jacob to come close enough so that he can touch him. And remember, Isaac is blind. He can't see, but he knows that Jacob and Esau don't feel the same. And they don't sound the same. They probably didn't smell the same either. And this is funny because if any of you caught our podcast last week and you maybe listened to episode 87.
Very good.
Today is 88. You heard that my husband tried to make me sound like him. And I tried to use that voice. Hello, this is Thomas.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And here, I can only imagine, though, that Jacob he must have gone in there and tried to disguise his voice. His father, I mean, they grew up together. They lived in the same, on the same property.
Yeah.
You would think he would come in and be like, "Hey, Dad, I got the game."
Yeah. Well, and that's why he says in verse 22,
Yeah.
Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, who felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him because his hands were hair like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. So he had this he understood okay, this is not the right voice. This is Jacob's voice, but I touch his hands, which he'd put goat skins on. I mean, how funny is that? Like, you're so hairy, your dad touches goat and thinks it's you.
Ugh.
Yeah.
No offense to all of the hairy gentlemen out there.
Yeah, you just offended most of the male population.
Sorry,
out there.
guys.
But
that's really hairy, though.
Even everything was different about these guys, even their voices. And I imagine Esau had this very deep James Earl Jones type of voice.
Yeah.
And Jacob probably sounded like a whiny little punk, a lot like me. A little high pitched, scrawny, whatever.
I will take your voice over you being completely goat hairy.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like I win here. So let's continue on in verse 24. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" I mean, he has all these suspicions, and they keep kind of getting knocked down because, okay, it doesn't sound like him, but it feels like him, and
food smells like it.
Yeah. How'd you get the food? Oh, God gave it to me. All this, and it's like, okay, are you really my son? This is your chance. Come clean if it's not you. If it's not really you. And he answered, "I am." He does not take this opportunity to come clean and to tell the truth. And we really see a lack of trust here between Isaac and Jacob. And I mean, it makes sense. Previous lies and deception in the family have led to this lack of trust. Trust is broken in a moment, and it's built over a lifetime. Think about that. I mean, think about the things that you say to your spouse, to your children. Kids, teenagers, think about what you do in your home and what you say to your parents. Trust is broken in a moment, a blink of an eye, but it takes a lifetime to build it back. So think about somebody that you don't trust. Think about somebody who maybe has lied to you several times. What's your relationship like with that person? It's not good, is it?
No.
Those people that we don't trust, we push away. We put our guard up. We're very careful what we say to them, what we really take in and listen to what they say to us. It builds gaps. We push those people away because we don't trust them. There's no safety there. When we trust somebody, it's peaceful, it's safety, it's comfort. But when you're around somebody who you don't trust, your guard is up and it's uncomfortable and almost tense.
Yeah.
I think there's almost a physical tension that comes when there's a lack of trust. So think about that. Think about you. I need to think about me. Can people trust me? Can my children trust me? Can my spouse trust me?
And you said a word that really hits home in this passage that I think is just the word peace. Mm-hmm. Because there's no peace in this home.
No.
There's no just resting. I feel like, and I want our home to be a place where no matter what's going on in the world, and the world's tough and it sucks sometimes, mm-hmm. but I want our home to be a place where we walk in the door and we can just, just kind of let things go and just have peace. Mm-hmm. when we get in the van and it's the 6 of us, we can just let go and there just be peace. And in a home like this, and hopefully your home's not like Jacob and Esau's, like Isaac and Rebekah's, you have to be on guard all the time. You used the word tense just a second ago. And you just have to be watching all the time. And that's exhausting.
Yes.
And you can't just have that peace.
And rest.
And that's so sad. And we get down to verse number 25. Then Isaac said, "Bring it near to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And here the deception is successful. Jacob gains the birthright, and now he gains the blessing. And at this point, I'm sure Rebekah feels like she won,
right,
and Isaac lost. And I know what that's like, because that was exactly my mentality coming into our marriage, is I want to win. And I failed to understand that, hey, we're a team here. We're on the same side. It's not about me winning. It's not about Lysandra winning. It's about us as a couple and as a family winning together. She feels like Jacob, her son, has won, and Esau, her other son, has lost. And it's just so sad, because we should all be on the same team. Team Osterkamp.
Yes.
That's the way that it should be. But the division, the dysfunction in this family has led to competition, deceit, and now a fractured family.
So let's think about our own homes. Let's bring it home, so to speak. Is unity a priority in your home? Is that something that you're thinking about working toward? Are you breeding a spirit of competition in your home? If you are in competition against your spouse, your children see that, and they will absolutely mirror that. Do you have a win at all cost mentality? No matter what, I'm going to win. That's the goal. The goal is to win, to get my way, rather than, this is a team. We want what's best for the group. Rebekah fostered a win at all cost mentality in her home. And that attitude sacrifices people and relationships for a personal goal. That's the exact opposite of what we should be accomplishing in our homes. So let's try to make unity a top priority in our families this week.
So when you think about your family meeting tonight, we want you to sit down and just discuss how to disagree in a healthy way. And I think something that would be so interesting, maybe so eye-opening for some of us parents, is to talk to our kids about times where they've heard us disagree. And to see what their feelings and thoughts are about that. And then there may be some where we have some apologizing to do. We have some apologizing to our spouse to do, apologizing to our kids to do. But take some time to discuss, all right, what are the healthy things that we should do in a discussion, in a disagreement? Going off into private, speaking calmly, working together towards a joint resolution, on a best resolution for the entire family. And something that's so helpful, and we do this with our kids on different things, but it's just to role play a practice argument, a lot like they do in debate. Okay, I'm going to take this side of the discussion, you take that side of the discussion, and walk your way through it and show them how a disagreement ought to take place, and how do you work practically towards a joint resolution.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information to be helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. That's familymeeting.org. And if you want to shoot us an email, you've got episode ideas, you have questions, it's just info@familymeeting.org. But you know what we'd really love? We'd love to hear your voice.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you. And you can now send us a voice message, and you can ask questions. You can share your personal stories with us at 904-257-3062. That's 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we wrap up this series entitled This Is Us with the fallout. We're going to look at the repercussions of a family disunified next week. Where does disunity lead? We'll take a look next week.
Yeah, and we've been watching this kind of build and build and build, and now we're going to see exactly what comes of this type of attitude in a home and a family. Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Well done.
You too.
Another episode.
In the books.
Yep. Marching to 100. Here we go. Special episode 100. I was talking with Catherine as we were setting up, asking her, are you excited about 100? And she's excited.
Oh, good.
So,
yeah.
Going to have the whole family on episode 100.
That's going to be interesting. As a mom, I'm a little nervous. Like I'm tiny bit scared of where it's going to go because you guys, not me, all of the rest of you build on each other.
Our family meetings get exciting.
It gets crazy. And I'm like, how am I going to allow them to be real and raw and transparent, but not go crazy?
Yeah. Good luck to you.
I'm going to stress.
It's 5-on-1. So
yeah. So I'm totally outnumbered in this family, which you should be the outnumbered one. We're all girls.
Yeah.
But they've turned on me. Speaking of competition and sides, they've turned on me and they've
Well, you are a monster, not their mother.
I know, right? Oh my goodness. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as we record this episode of the family meeting. You guys have a great week. See you later.